Welcome back to MHS Midnight Horror Stories. I know that many of you come to these videos as a gentle way to unwind before drifting off to sleep. So, before you close your eyes tonight, could I ask you for one small favor? Just leave me a quick interaction, a comment, a like, or maybe share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Little actions like that help YouTube recognize the content and spread it to more people who might enjoy it. My current goal is to reach around 300 likes within the first 24 hours. Now then, let's step into tonight's chilling stories together. Here is what really happened on Christmas night when I was 11 years old. That evening, my parents had a company Christmas party they said was impossible to turn down for Dad's career. They decided to leave me home alone. Before leaving, Mom carefully instructed me to lock the doors, left the emergency numbers on the fridge, and reminded me to order pizza if I was hungry. Dad left $20 on the kitchen counter, patted my shoulder and said, "You're a big boy now. We trust you." I ordered pizza, turned on the cartoon channel, and curled up on the sofa. The gentle twinkling lights from the Christmas tree made me feel relaxed and sleepy. The house was unusually quiet. I don't remember exactly when I drifted off, only that when I woke up, a sudden chill hit me, making me shiver, and my first thought was that the heating system was broken. Then I saw that the back door was wide open. Snow was blowing in with the wind, leaving a distinct, melting trail on the wooden floor. I stared blankly for a few seconds, still groggy, trying to remember if I had forgotten to close the door. I rushed over, slammed the door shut, and carefully secured the deadbolt. When I turned back, I realized something was wrong. A small porcelain Christmas candle jar near the door shelf was knocked over, and the dining table cloth was clearly pulled to one side. This wasn't caused by the wind, but by some kind of force. I turned off the downstairs lights and went straight upstairs, wanting to quickly burrow under the covers and forget the creeping feeling of unease. As I stepped onto the third stair, I heard a sound. It was crying. Not loud crying or screaming, but a soft, suppressed sobbing, yet clearly audible. I stopped, my hand clutching the staircase railing. The sound was coming from above, right from the hallway where my bedroom was located. I looked up and saw a sight that froze my entire body. The attic stairs had been pulled down. That old wooden ladder was always locked by my father with a heavy iron hook, as our family had no reason to use it. But that night, it was lowered right in the middle of the hallway. And then the next sight was 1,000 times more horrifying. A red, bloody, smeared face peered down from the attic opening. 2 eyes stared straight at me. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. Every sense felt completely paralyzed. Only my heart was still working, pounding so hard I thought it would burst. The Christmas string lights downstairs were still twinkling. In the moments the light flashed, I saw more clearly. The face belonged to a gaunt woman, almost skin and bones. Deep, fresh cuts crisscrossed her face. The blood was still wet, dripping onto the wooden floor, one drop at a time, forming a dark red puddle beneath my feet. Her eyes stared at me obsessively. I don't remember how I ran out of the house. I only knew that I was running across the freezing snow, my panicked screams echoing throughout the quiet neighborhood. I kept running and yelling for help until the light from the neighbor's house, an elderly couple living 3 houses down, turned on. They rushed outside. The woman immediately wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and held me tightly. The man immediately called the police. My parents arrived even before the police. They held me very tightly, frantically asking if I was hurt anywhere, but I couldn't answer. I could only shake my head and point toward the house. The police quickly found the woman in the attic. She was huddled in a corner, whispering things no one could understand. As they led her out, I clearly saw her face with the bleeding cuts. I remember my parents hugging me very tight and my mother whispering the boy was in there alone with her. Then Mom burst into tears, repeatedly stroking my hair. I was still in shock after the incident. I still couldn't understand the woman's purpose. A few days after Christmas, the police concluded the investigation and reported that the woman was an escaped psychiatric patient from a hospital a few miles away. She believed she was trapped in the wrong body and had tried to peel the skin off her face to find the true, pure face underneath. That night, in her delusion, she climbed over our garden fence. The twinkling Christmas lights outside the window made her believe this was the place God guided her to, a heavenly home. She sneaked in through the back door and made her way to the attic, where she believed she was closest to heaven to carry out her mission. She had been up there for many hours. I suffered a mental breakdown and required intensive therapy. My parents also changed. They never spoke directly about it, but I could see it in the way they looked at me. Mom arranged her work schedule to stay home with me during that time. Dad sealed off the attic entrance with wooden planks and concrete. I got much better after nearly 2 months. Our family returned to a more normal and much more connected life. Now, as an adult with my own family, I often tell this story to my wife and children every Christmas. My wife and I always keep our promise, never to leave the children home alone. I remember it was around Christmas time. The air was cold, but the town of Altoona, Iowa, was warm with twinkling lights. I was 16, living with my family and working a part-time shift at the local McDonald's. I usually had to work early morning shifts on weekends. So that night, I went to bed earlier than usual. I lay down, pulled up the blanket, and fell asleep quite quickly. Everything was very normal at first, but in just a moment, I began to feel something was off. Then I started to dream. I was running. Not a leisurely jog, but a frantic flight with my heart pounding. I looked around. It was pitch black, and I was in downtown Des Moines, about a 20-minute drive from my house. Skyscrapers lined both sides of the street, and neon lights from the Christmas-decorated shops reflected on the wet road. I didn't know what I was running from. I only knew that there was a presence chasing me from behind. I couldn't hear footsteps, couldn't hear heavy breathing, but I could feel it. A chilling sensation clinging to the back of my neck like a nameless shadow. My feet hammered continuously on the pavement. I circled street corners, weaving between buildings, hoping to find a place to hide. My breath was short and ragged. Finally, I quickly turned into an alley, rounding the corner of an old red brick building, and I was forced to stop. Right in front of me stood a man. He stood tall, like a statue. Much taller than me, probably over 6 feet. He wore a long black coat that reached down to his ankles. On his head, he wore a classic top hat, like the ones gentlemen wore in old black and white movies. Beneath the brim, his face was obscured by shadow, but I could still see his eyes. They were abnormally large, almost entirely black. He looked at me with an intensely desirous expression. I stood there, feeling like time had frozen. I stood there, unable to move. Maybe it was just a few seconds, or minutes, I don't know. I only knew that it felt like I was trapped in that moment with those bizarre black eyes staring at me. Then, he slowly reached out his hand. A bony, gaunt hand slowly extended toward me like an invitation. The gesture wasn't threatening, but strangely, as if he was inviting me to follow him. The moment his fingers were about to touch my face, I woke up violently. I shot up, out of bed, my breath coming in short gasps, my heart hammering. I put my hand to my chest, trying to catch my breath and looking around the room. The alarm clock on the table read about 2:30 a.m. Everything was quiet. It was just a dream. I let out a breath, my body still trembling. Wiping my forehead, I found my hand was soaked with cold sweat. I pulled the blanket up, lay back down, and tried to calm myself. But just then, I paused. A white plume of vapor from my breath was clearly visible in front of me. Now I realized the room was incredibly cold. Cold enough that I could see my own breath. That was not normal at all. I jumped up, deciding to check. I placed my feet on the wooden floor, immediately feeling the sharp cold spreading from the soles of my feet up my spine. I hurried to the window on the left side of the bed, which was always closed tight before sleep. Checked carefully. The latch was still fastened, not a single gap. I turned to the opposite wall, where the air vent was placed at chest height. I placed my palm on it, feeling the warm air still blowing steadily. The heating system was working. So why was the room freezing like a cold storage unit? This cold wasn't caused by a draft or a normal temperature drop. It was dense, strange, as if something had dragged it in when it entered the room. A sense of unease began to creep into my mind. Then I suddenly felt the cold air slowly creeping up from the foot of the bed. A shudder ran down my spine. I looked toward the end of the bed, and he was there, the man from the dream. He stood right at the foot of my bed in the dim light of the room. The long black coat, the top hat, and the abnormally large eyes with deep black pupils staring directly at me. He didn't move, just stood there like a statue and watched me. I quickly backed away, cowering, unable to take my eyes off the figure. I tried to gasp for air. What do you want? He didn't answer, but I saw the bony hand slowly raise. The gaunt fingers gently beckoned to me, the same gesture as in the dream. A silent, yet threatening invitation. I grew up in a devout Christian family. I had heard stories about things like this. My parents often talked about demons, about wicked spirits, about how they appear to tempt or torment people. I believed that what was standing in front of me was a demon, an entity from hell that came to harm me. Get out of here right now. I tried to make my voice stronger. He didn't disappear. Instead, I felt like he was moving closer, not by stepping, but by filling the space around me with his coldness. Then his mouth opened, and a thick, raspy voice came out. I didn't understand what he was saying. Then he screamed loudly and piercingly. It echoed in the room, making my ears ring. I covered my ears, closed my eyes, and hunched over. And when I opened my eyes, he was gone. The room was still freezing, but I was sweating. I bent down and vomited right onto the wooden floor. My body shook with spasms. After that, I cleaned up the mess, crawled into bed, pulled the blanket up, and curled into a ball. I didn't dare look down at the foot of the bed. I closed my eyes and eventually drifted off to sleep. The alarm clock blared. I woke up with a start and turned it off. The clock read 4:45 a.m. I sat up and looked around the room. Everything was normal. The room was warm, the vent blowing gentle heat. There was no vomit stain, no sign of the cold. Was it just a dream? Was it all just a long, vivid, terrible nightmare? I decided to reassure myself that I was just overly stressed, but it was definitely the most horrible dream I had ever had. Almost 2 weeks passed since that night. Christmas arrived, lights twinkling all over Altoona. I kept reassuring myself it was just a dream. That evening, my parents went to a company party. They left me in charge of watching my sisters. I needed to sleep early for my 5 a.m. shift tomorrow. At 9 p.m., I went up to my room, closed the door, and lay down in bed. I had only closed my eyes for a few seconds when the door burst open. Jingle bells! Jingle bells! My 3 younger sisters stormed in, singing loudly. Emily shook the bells. Sarah and Kate danced around the bed. I helplessly demanded, "Get out!" But they didn't listen, continuing to sing. I pulled the blanket completely over my head, thinking if I ignored them, they would get bored. Then that feeling of coldness hit, exactly like that previous night. The singing of my three sisters suddenly went silent. I pulled the blanket down and saw him, the man in the top hat standing in the corner of the room. Long black coat, abnormally large eyes staring directly at me. My three sisters stood frozen, mouths agape. He lunged toward me at terrifying speed. The bony hand touched my chest, and instantly everything went black. When I woke up, I was kneeling on the hallway floor. My head was spinning, and my mouth had a metallic taste. I didn't remember how I got out of the room. The house was strangely silent. Emily? Sarah? Kate? I called out loudly, but no one answered. A small cry came from the bathroom. I ran over, twisted the handle, but the door was locked. "Open the door!" I knocked hard. "Go away." Emily's voice trembled from inside. "You go away." "What are you saying? It's me." "No, Mom and Dad are coming home. Don't touch me." I was bewildered, not understanding what was happening. And when I inadvertently looked down, I saw my fingers were stained with dried blood. I looked at the bathroom door. There were puncture holes. A broken broomstick was jammed deep into the hallway wall, leaving a large crack. I panicked and ran around the house. When I got downstairs to the living room, I was horrified to see a mess. Kitchen knives scattered everywhere, a deep cut in the wooden table, and tears in the sofa. The familiar feeling of nausea hit me. I knelt down and vomited right onto the wooden floor. My body shook with spasms until there was nothing left to throw up. Just then, my parents returned. As soon as they opened the door, they looked at me and yelled, "What happened here?" I couldn't answer. Dad walked straight toward me, grabbed my arm, and slapped my face. "Go to your room right now." I staggered up the stairs, not because of the slap, but because of the extreme confusion. I didn't understand what was happening. The next morning, my three sisters walked into the room. They stood far away, afraid to come near. Emily held Sarah and Kate tightly. "Do you remember anything?" Emily asked. I shook my head. "You did horrible things." Emily swallowed. Sarah chimed in. "Your eyes were glowing red like blood flowing out. I was so scared." Kate nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I thought you were possessed." Emily continued, her voice choked. "You stood up and laughed, but your voice was completely different. You chased us. You took knives, throwing them everywhere. We ran upstairs, locked ourselves in the bathroom. You pounded on the door, stabbing the broomstick right through it. I thought you were going to kill us." I sat there feeling my world collapse. "I'm sorry. I don't remember any of it." The door closed. I sat alone, wondering what was happening to me, and if I was even myself anymore.
3 years ago, a terrible incident happened at the home of Mia and Henry. They live in an upscale area in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They have a 4-year-old son, Mike. The couple, Mia and Henry, have a large company, always busy with customers and contracts. However, they still try their best to spend some time with their son. Mike is a lively boy, very emotional and understanding. The horrifying story happened in August. Mia and Henry have a business schedule of about 1 month in Ohio. After researching many profiles on Care.com, Mia liked a girl named Emily. Emily had 3 years of experience as a nurse and 2 years as a babysitter. Emily was invited to come to the house by Mia and Henry. The couple observed how Emily took care of Mike for 2 days before they went on a business trip. Mike and Emily got along quite quickly. The boy listened to Emily very much, which made Mia and Henry feel pretty secure and confident. They left Mike with an iPad for communication. While on business trips, Mia and her husband often called home to update on Mike's situation. "Hey, little buddy, you've got anything fun today?" Mia said on the phone with a gentle voice. "I eat very well, Mom," Mike answered innocently. The boy told his parents many things he did during the day with Miss Emily. Everything went normal until 1 week later. Mike suddenly became timid. One time the person who picked up the call was not Mike, but Emily. The boy did not dare to talk and appeared extremely scared. "Mike, come here quickly. Mom and Dad are talking to you," Emily said softly. Mike immediately approached, holding the iPad but not looking at the screen, at Emily instead. Mia and her husband promised Mike that they would finish work soon and going to buy many toys for Mike. Hearing his parents comforting him, Mike suddenly burst into tears. The boy kept asking for his mother. Mia was worried when she saw Mike's emotional turmoil. Emily picked Mike up to comfort him, told Mia and her husband to rest assured, then turned off the phone very quickly. Another time, Mia and Henry were worried when they saw large bruises on Mike's face and hands. When his parents asked what was wrong, Mike refused to speak, just looked down. Emily explained that Mike was playing without paying attention and fell down. Emily told the couple to rest assured because she knew how to make bruises heal quickly. Mia and Henry found it strange because Mike had always been very good, didn't run around and never got hurt while playing. During the last 2 weeks of the business trip, Mia and Henry called Mike more often, but Emily will be the one to answer the phone and give reasons why Mike doesn't answer the phone. Regardless of the time frame, Emily said Mike was sleeping. Another time, Mike was sitting at the dining table, but the boy turned his back. No matter what his parents called, he did not respond. Mia and Henry asked Emily to bring her iPad closer to Mike, but she refused. Emily said Mike needs to rest soon to calm his mind. The couple started to notice something strange about the babysitter. The next day, they could no longer contact Mike. The calls kept ringing until no one picked up. Mia and Henry immediately arranged their work and flew home. Around 8 p.m. they arrived home. Mia rushed up to Mike's room. Henry dragged his luggage into the house, called out to Emily but couldn't find her. The couple entered Mike's room. The boy was sitting neatly on the desk near the bed. Mia saw Mike and happily ran to hug her son. "Mommy's home, son." Mike did not react. His body relaxed and fell back into Mia's arms. The small face had dried blood running down the forehead. The usually lively mouth was sewn shut, and the hands were tied in a folded position on the table. Mia collapsed on the floor, holding Mike tightly with her arms, trying to scream but couldn't, her panicked expression and tears streaming down her eyes. Henry ran to hug Mia and tried to help his wife stand up. Henry didn't cry, wasn't angry, didn't panic. There was a blank expression on his face. Henry called the police. Mike's body was examined and it was concluded that the boy died from physical trauma to the head. Mia was so shocked that she had a stroke and had to be rushed to the emergency room. A warrant for Emily's arrest was issued statewide. After a week of searching, the police finally caught Emily. She shows signs of madness and loss of control. Through further investigation, Emily once showed signs of schizophrenic disorder. She had previously hidden her illness and constantly been overdosed on drugs. "That boy's so noisy. He should have sit quietly and stayed quiet forever." Those were Emily's terrifying words at the trial before she was sentenced to death. Mia regained consciousness and regained her health, but the shock was so great that she could not speak. Henry took Mia to San Francisco, California, a faraway place to start a new life. "We should have been more careful when hiring a babysitter, so this terrible thing wouldn't have happened."
I am Erica, 29 years old. I have a happy life with a fulfilling marriage and a successful career. My husband is Oscar, 32 years old. He is my high school sweetheart. Currently, we are living and working in Washington, D.C. We have not been able to have children due to my previous surgery, and I am still undergoing treatment. One day, while working at the company, I received a call from my hometown, Boston. My mother had just suffered a heart attack and was in the hospital. I immediately informed Oscar, and we arranged our work schedules to return to Boston that night. We went straight from the airport to the hospital to visit my mother. Fortunately, she had passed the critical phase, but her health was still quite weak. Nearly 2 days without sleep, worrying about my mother, left me on the verge of collapse. Oscar was concerned and took me to my mother's house to rest. Returning to the familiar room, I felt cold and fearful. Oscar left me to rest while he needed to urgently handle some remaining work. I ran my hand over the faded bedsheet, and a wave of emotions washed over me. Moving to the study desk, I noticed 2 sketchbooks labeled Erica and Era that my mother had kept. Opening the first page of the book labeled Era, I burst into tears. It was a drawing of 2 identical little girls, holding hands happily, wearing a necklace with an infinity symbol around their necks. Oscar returned and was surprised to see me crying. Oscar thought I was stressed about my mother's health. He comforted me and urged me to rest quickly. I told Oscar to stay, as having him around made me feel at ease and comfortable. I quickly drifted off to sleep. I don't remember how long it was, but I woke up, slowly opening my eyes, and saw that the person lying next to me was not Oscar. It was me, but in a horrifying form, with pale skin and eyes streaming blood. I sprang up screaming, flailing my arms and kicking to push the grotesque figure away. My wrist was gripped tightly, forcefully, and Oscar's voice shouted my name. I came to my senses. The person in front of me was Oscar. I hugged him tightly and cried. Oscar asked many questions, but I remained silent and shook my head. He stopped asking questions and said he would take me out to dinner. We had a pleasant dinner at a local restaurant. Near the end of the meal, Oscar received a phone call from a partner and left to handle it. I stayed behind to enjoy my favorite dessert. When I looked up, I accidentally saw Oscar's familiar figure, but Oscar wasn't handling work on the phone. He was leaving with another girl dressed in a red dress just like mine. I panicked, standing up to take a closer look. The girl was flirtatiously linking arms with Oscar, and she turned to look directly at me with a creepy smile. That girl looked exactly like me. I immediately chased after them, screaming my husband's name in panic and anger. As I got closer, I tugged hard at Oscar's arm, but when they turned around, they were 2 complete strangers. They looked at me with annoyedly. Just then, Oscar rushed over to apologize to the couple and took me away. Oscar and I visited my mother in the hospital for a while. Before returning home, I took a shower to feel more comfortable and relaxed. After finishing my shower, I returned to the bedroom and went to the closet. Upon opening the door to find my pajamas, I was surprised to see another identical set of clothes had appeared. I gradually lost my composure, rapidly swiping away those clothes. Suddenly, a grotesque face with blood-smeared eyes appeared and smiled at me. I screamed loudly, rummaging through the closet and throwing everything out. Rushing to the bookshelf, I grabbed a pair of scissors and shredded all the clothes. Unable to control my actions, I accidentally cut my own hand. When I finally calmed down, in front of me was a heap of shredded clothing and my left hand covered in wounds. Afraid that Oscar would find out and unsure how to explain it to him, I quickly cleaned everything up and returned to bed, pretending to be asleep. The next morning, I woke up to find Oscar was not by my side. Just the creaking sound echoed from the attic above. I stepped out into the hallway, calling out loudly for Oscar, but received no response. I was very afraid to go up to that attic room. Taking heavy steps, My heart raced as the distance between me and the door narrowed. Opening the door to the room, the space inside was a childhood playroom of mine. The rocking horse was moving on its own without any external influence. I stood frozen in place, gripping the doorknob tightly. The rocking horse swayed faster and harder, and the giggling voices of two children rang out.
Erica, will you and I always be together? I agree, Era.
I covered my ears tightly. My head felt like it was about to explode. I staggered backward and fell down the stairs. As I was falling, I saw my own image, standing on the highest step, looking at me with a creepy smile. I was surrounded in darkness, and the numbness rang through my whole body. I woke up, finding myself lying in a hospital bed, with Oscar sitting next to me. I burst into tears, pleading with him to take me back to Washington. I didn't want to stay here any longer. Oscar held me tightly to reassure me. He said he would fulfill all my wishes once I recovered. The next morning, Oscar invited a psychologist to the house. I didn't want my husband to worry more, so I reluctantly met with the doctor. After their discussion, the doctor and Oscar left to talk privately. I went into the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. Had I fallen apart and become this exhausted? The image of me in the mirror suddenly smiled a haunting smile. I screamed in frustration. Whatever object was within my reach, I smashed violently against the mirror, shattering it. Oscar heard the noise and rushed to hold me tightly. The psychologist injected me with a sedative. I remember the sound of Oscar crying. He continuously whispered in my ear, "Everything will be okay. I'm right here with you." I fell asleep not long after that. When I woke up, the room around me was pitch black. A sudden pain shot through my abdomen, as if my flesh were being sliced open bit by bit. I reached to touch my stomach and felt a long cut with sticky liquid covering my hand. From the ceiling, a corpse dangled directly in front of me. It was a girl, dressed in a hospital gown, with messy hair, but her face was still clearly visible. She looked just like me. I jumped up, and Oscar was jolted awake by my movement. I looked at him, worried about me. I burst into tears, begging Oscar to forgive me. He didn't understand what was happening until I confessed everything. I am Ira, not my sister Erica. 13 years ago, I had a twin sister named Erica. We shared the same face, almost 99%. Even my mother found it hard to distinguish between us. But my sister and I were not as fortunate as many other twins. We couldn't live independent and free lives due to our conjointed bodies at the abdomen. We accepted a life attached to each other and had high hopes for the doctor's words, that by the age of 16, we could undergo surgery to separate us. While I had a strong personality, Erica was more gentle. My sister and I were stigmatized and ostracized by friends, but there was only one person who stood up to protect us. That was Oscar. From the first time I saw him, I liked Oscar, but didn't dare to say anything. I eagerly awaited the day when we could have successful surgery, and I could confess my feelings to him. Until one day, I discovered that Erica also liked Oscar. It was even more painful when he confessed his feelings for Erica while I was there. I was just the third wheel during their dates. It was truly ridiculous. The day we finally underwent surgery came, after being given anesthesia and lying in the waiting room. Erica and I got into an argument over a man. In a fit of rage, I strangled Erica, causing her to slowly dying. Everyone thought it was the effect of the anesthesia. By the time the surgery was successful, only I woke up. Taking advantage of our similar appearances, I disguised myself as Erica and lived the happy life that was supposed to be hers for the past 13 years. After hearing me recount the entire incident, Oscar looked at me with horror and walked away. I couldn't face Oscar afterward. I chose to stay here and confront my crime without returning to Washington. I longed to plead for Erica's forgiveness, but it was all too late.
I am Jackson,
just a young guy working the night shift at a small gym out in the suburbs of Kansas. The job was pretty chill, cleaning up, checking the equipment, and hanging around till the morning crew showed up. First few days on the job, I thought it was kind of boring, but at least it was steady, nothing crazy. The gym used to be the headquarters of some big insurance company, but what made it interesting was the rumor that the company's director had offed himself there about 10 years ago. Word was he took his own life after getting caught up in some corruption scandal. I figured it was just one of those stories people make up. Then the dreams started. At first, they were just random flashes in my head, hazy dreams that disappeared the second I woke up. But over time, they got more real. I saw myself walking down this long hallway, the fluorescent lights above me flickering like something straight out of a horror movie. I could hear the noise of a meeting in the distance, but the closer I got, the more it just faded away, like fog. Every time I woke up, I had this weird feeling, like I'd been there before. Sometimes, walking down the hallway toward the old meeting room, I'd get an eerie sense of déjà vu, like I'd stood there before, seen things I couldn't even put into words. I kept telling myself I was just letting all those ghost stories mess with my head, but that feeling wouldn't let go. It stuck with me, making me question everything. Raymond, the gym manager, was a weird guy. He kept to himself, always quiet, always careful, especially at night. He'd show up with some excuse about checking the books, but there was something off about him. Anytime I brought up the strange noises or the creepy vibe in that old meeting room, he'd shut down, dodging my questions, his eyes flashing like he knew something I didn't. One time, I straight up caught him locking the door to the old conference room. That door had never been used. I couldn't figure out why he was so hung up on it. When I asked, he just said, "You don't need to worry about things that don't matter." Yeah, that only made me more suspicious. Raymond was hiding something, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. One night, while cleaning out the storage room, I found an old photo. It was a black and white picture, a little crumpled, showing the leadership team of the insurance company. And there, in the corner, was Raymond, looking way younger, as assistant of the director who supposedly killed himself. Why the hell was he hiding? I flipped the photo over and saw some writing. Board of Directors, 2013, and a list of names with signatures. I spotted the initials JW at the end of the list, the same as mine. My stomach dropped. No way. My name couldn't be on there. As I kept digging, I found an old briefcase. It had the insurance company's logo on it, along with some scratches that looked oddly familiar. A blurry memory surfaced. I used to have a briefcase just like this back when I was a student. When I asked Raymond about the list and the briefcase, he yanked them out of my hands. He mumbled something under his breath, too quiet for me to catch, then shoved everything into a drawer and locked it. The way he rushed to hide it only made me more suspicious. After that, my dreams got more intense. So real that I couldn't tell if I was dreaming or actually living them. I saw myself in the old conference room, watching some heated argument go down. A man, the director, I guess, was in a heated argument with a group of guys. His voice was raw, full of anger and fear. And there was Raymond, standing off to the side, eyes cold as ice. One night, while going through some old medical records, I found that right after the suicide 10 years ago, I'd been diagnosed with PTSD. The doctor had written that I had selective amnesia, my brain's way of blocking out the memories which are too painful to handle. Then the memories started coming back, clearer than ever. I had been an intern at that insurance company. The night the director committed suicide, I saw Raymond and the others forcing him to sign some documents. When he refused, they killed him, just like that, and staged the whole thing. I freaked out. They threatened me, They made me sign something to help cover it up. My head spun as the memory hit me. I wasn't just some random outsider in all this. I had to face Raymond. One night, I laid all the evidence out in front of Raymond. "You can't hide this forever," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't even try to deny it, just smirked. "You think you're innocent? You signed those papers. You were part of it. If you talk, I'm taking you down with me." I turned everything over to the police, every piece of evidence, including my own confession. Didn't take long for them to figure out Raymond was just a pawn in something much bigger. The real mastermind, someone from the director's own family, pulling strings for power and money. I ended up in court, but since I cooperated and testified, they cut my sentence down. Still, I didn't sleep for days. The director's face, the yelling in that conference room, it all kept playing in my head like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. The gym shut down for good, but what happened there still lingers in this town, just like it lingers in me. No matter how much I want to move on, I know one thing for sure: the past never really lets me go. I'm Naomi, 15 years old. That evening was a Saturday night. My parents were out at a friend's birthday party and wouldn't be back until late. I was sitting on the sofa in the living room, watching a comedy. Abby, our 7-year-old dog, was curled up beside my feet. Everything was peaceful until 9 o'clock. I heard a noise from outside. Abby heard it too and lifted her head. I muted the TV and listened. It was just the sound of the wind blowing through the branches of the maple tree outside. I was about to turn the sound back on when Abby suddenly jumped up. Her ears stood up and she stared toward the front door. I turned off the TV completely and everything went silent. The sound of slow footsteps came clearly through the stillness. Someone was walking from the driveway, across the front yard, then toward the side of the house. I stood up, my legs shaking. Looking through the living room window, I saw the front yard lit up by the lights. There was no one out there, but the footsteps continued, now coming from the back of the house. Abby walked toward the front door, her fur standing on end. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Maybe it's just a neighbor walking their dog. But why would he walk into my yard? The footsteps stopped somewhere behind the house. I waited, counting my heartbeat. A moment later, I heard the sound of metal clinking. Abby started growling. It definitely wasn't the neighbor, like I had thought. Abby never reacts like this to familiar people. I quietly moved to the kitchen, where there was a small window above the sink facing the backyard. Everything was dark. The sound of metal came again. This time it was clearer. Someone was messing with the back door lock. I moved closer to the wall and slowly peered through the corner of the window. The motion sensor light in the backyard suddenly turned on, bright as day. I saw the back of a tall man in a black coat, wearing a knitted hat covering his face. He was holding a long metal bar, trying to pry open the back door lock. I froze, stunned. He was a burglar, or worse. I backed away, leaning against the refrigerator. My hands were trembling. I needed to call 911 right away, but I couldn't find my phone. I put my hands on my head, trying to remember where I had left it. The sound of metal scraping against the lock continued. He seemed to be getting impatient. Abby ran into the kitchen, looking up at me, still growling toward the back door. I hugged Abby's neck, whispering, "Shh, Abby, don't make a sound." But Abby wouldn't listen, her growling getting louder. The scraping noise immediately stopped. I held my breath. He knew someone was inside. A few seconds passed, and I heard heavy footsteps on the wooden stairs at the back of the house. He was walking down to the backyard, leaving the back door, but I knew he wasn't leaving. The footsteps moved from the backyard to the side of the house. He was walking around checking other entrances. I heard him try pushing against the window frame. It was locked, but he was still trying. Then he moved to the living room window. Abby barked sharply. I rushed to cover her mouth, but it was too late. The footsteps stopped at the living room window. I imagined he was standing out there, staring through the glass, knowing for sure someone was home. My heart pounded harder and harder. I had to do something. Then suddenly, I remembered my dad's gun. He keeps it in the closet in their bedroom. The footsteps started again. Now he was in front of the house. I didn't have much time to hesitate. I picked up Abby and ran down the hall to my parents' bedroom and opened the closet. I felt a little safer. My dad's old shoebox was at the bottom of the closet. I opened it. Inside was a small handgun next to a box of bullets. I picked it up and checked the magazine like I had seen my dad do. 6 rounds, all there. I took the safety off, my hands still shaking. Abby was standing by the door, looking toward the stairs with her ears perked up. The scraping from the basement started again. The basement door was old, and the lock wasn't very secure. If he kept at it, he could open it. Abby ran toward the basement stairs, barking loudly. Her barking echoed through the house like an alarm system. The scraping from the basement grew louder. I looked at the gun in my hand. If he came in, if he meant to hurt me, would I be able to pull the trigger? The scraping stopped. Abby stopped barking but was still growling. I listened. There were no footsteps from the basement. He hadn't entered the house. Instead, I heard heavy footsteps moving outside, climbing the concrete steps leading from the basement door to the yard. He had given up. I collapsed onto the bedroom floor, leaning against the bed. Abby ran up to me, licking my face. I held her tightly, feeling her warmth. Now, I needed to call the police. The phone had to be somewhere under the living room couch. I ran downstairs and found it in the corner of the sofa. But before I pressed the call button, I heard a car engine from far away. The headlights shone through the living room window. The car was turning into our driveway. My parents were home. I still didn't dare open the door to run outside. I just stood still, listening. But Abby had noticed, her tail wagging furiously. My parents stepped into the house through the garage door, talking about the party. "Sarah, are you asleep?" my mom called. I ran to them, still holding the gun in my hand. When my parents saw me like that, their smiles immediately disappeared. "Sweetheart, what's going on?" my dad asked, quickly taking the gun from my hand. I told them everything, my voice shaking. My dad turned on the back porch light and grabbed a flashlight to check around the house. We called the police. 2 officers arrived, took my statement, and checked the house. The basement door and the back door showed signs of tampering. It was likely that someone was testing out which house was easy to break into. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed with Abby curled up next to me, listening to every sound outside. The next morning, I went down to the kitchen and overheard a conversation between Uncle Peter and my dad on the phone. "Jack, I stopped by your place last night, but no one answered the door." My dad was silent for a while. "Did you do anything there, Peter?" "Well, I just wanted to leave a thank you card and a gift card for Sarah. She helped me with my presentation last week and I just got promoted." "Did you try any of the doors?" "No, I just left the card and left." My dad and I looked at each other in silence. So the first footsteps were from Uncle Pete, and the one who tried to pry open the lock and walk around my house came later. I shuddered as I realized, if Uncle Pete hadn't come first, I might not have been alert in time. It's chilling to think about. I'm Chasey, 27. I work at this little coffee shop in Riverdale. Charles and I had been together for 3 years. We were planning to get married next year. To save up, we took whatever temp gigs we could find. One day, we heard about this cleanup job from a guy named Todd. Just short-term work, but the pay wasn't bad. When we got there, Todd welcomed us with this friendly grin. He gave us a tour of the place. Big property, lots of junk that needed hauling.
"There's one more spot I want to show you. This is where we keep the old equipment. Need to go through it, Toss whatever's useless. Make a sound, and you'll end up like your boyfriend.
My whole body was shaking as he chained my wrists to a rusted iron hook. Then, he pulled Charles's body out. When that container door slammed shut, everything went hazy. The first few hours felt like one long nightmare. I cried, I screamed, I begged. Nobody came, nobody heard. He came back a few hours later, holding a bottle of water and some food. He sat down on the only wooden chair in the container and stared at me with this weird look in his eyes.
JC, you know Charles was number 7. The first one was some homeless guy. Showed up about 2 years ago, asking if I had work. Hang on, I gotta remember the order of the rest. The second one was... forget it. That doesn't matter anymore. What matters is this. Number 8, that'll be you if you don't behave.
The next few days were a blur, just fear and dread stitched together. He came by often, brought food, water. Sometimes he'd just sit there watching me. Other times, he'd start talking, bragging about the sick things he'd done.
I like you, JC. You're not like the others. You're scared in this special way.
What? What do you mean?
But the more time passed, the more I started to pick up on his patterns. He usually came by in the mornings and evenings. Sometimes he'd be gone all day. And little by little, I worked at the chains. Just enough to loosen them, not enough to make noise. Then one morning, Todd walked in jittery, eyes darting like he was on edge.
There are cops around. I'm sorry, JC. I really wanted to keep you longer, but it's too risky now.
Freeze! Police! Drop your weapon!
A gunshot rang out, but it wasn't his. Todd hit the ground hard, blood pouring from his shoulder. Cops stormed in, weapons drawn, yelling. Todd was groaning, clutching his side.
Chasey Fields, you're safe now. We're getting you out of here.
They unlocked the chains and I just sat there, stunned. I couldn't believe it was real. After everything, I was free. They helped me out of the container. The sunlight hit my eyes like a slap, blinding after all that time in the dark. The place was crawling with cops and ambulances now. Off in the distance, I saw people digging, searching for victims.
How did you find me?
Your landlord filed a missing person report for you and your boyfriend. And we'd already been watching Todd. He was a suspect in a few other disappearances in the area.
They shoved him in, hands cuffed behind his back. In the days that followed, after I was reunited with my family, the truth started to come out. The police found Charles's body, and more. There were graves on the property. The whole time I was locked up, I was living next to a graveyard. He hadn't been lying. He was a serial killer. They found at least 7 other victims buried out there. Even now, I still wake up at night, heart racing, thinking I'm still in there. That container. It takes me a second to remember I'm home, and it's over.
I'm Karen, 18. Just moved into the dorms at Franklin College, a small, chill school in Ohio. Since arriving late, I didn't have a lot of choices for a room. I ended up with a room on the top floor, which is pretty annoying for getting around. The hallway was dark, the windows were busted, and the wind blew through, making creepy noises. Even though I felt weird right from the start, I told myself it was all in my head, and everything would be fine.
When I opened the door, I saw JC, a classmate who had been here earlier. JC was quiet and had something kind of weird about her. There were crosses hanging all over the room, and the lights were always on, even during the day. Every night, JC would play music and curl up on the bed, her face always looking tense and scared. Her random gasps and jumps in the middle of the night made it almost impossible for me to get any sleep those first few days. I was so exhausted. I went to the dorm office to ask for a room change, but they were all full. With no other option, I decided to stick it out and figure out a way to deal with it. I decided to start a conversation, telling some funny stories to try and get JC out of her shell. At first she was quiet, but over time, we started getting closer. One Saturday night, while we were sitting on the floor eating pizza, JC finally opened up. She said that since moving into this room, she's been hearing a girl sobbing and whispering in a sad way. There were nights when loud banging noises came from the wall, but she couldn't figure out where they were coming from. JC thought this room had some creepy secret, and that fear made her unable to sleep without the lights and music on. Listening to her story, I got the chills and tried to tell myself that JC was just overthinking it. But after that day, everything started to change. The weird stuff JC told me about, I started feeling it too. One night, while JC was asleep, I was lying in bed and heard a soft knocking sound from the wall across from me. The knocking was steady, getting louder and louder, like someone was trying to break out. I jumped up, my heart racing and my whole body freezing. I shook JC awake, but when she opened her eyes, everything went silent. We just sat there, frozen under the light, with a creepy feeling filling the whole room. A few days later, while cleaning, I accidentally found a weird object stuck in the crack of the old cabinet. It was a dusty student ID with the name Tabby Nelson on it. In the photo, Tabby was this pretty girl with long brown hair and a big smile. When I read the info on the card, I realized Tabby was a student at the school, like 7 years older than us. That night, JC and I sat in front of our laptops looking up info about Tabby in the school system. The results shocked us both. Tabby Nelson had dropped out before even finishing her freshman year. There was no note, just the reason: sudden transfer. JC didn't stop. She kept searching through old news sites. Suddenly, JC stopped, her eyes wide, voice shaking as she read an article. Tabby Nelson went missing from her dorm. I just stared at the screen, reading those words. Almost 10 years ago, Tabby was last seen heading back to her room late at night. The police searched everywhere but didn't find a thing. What made me shiver even more was that the room Tabby had been in was ours now. I felt cold all over. The weird sounds JC heard, the crying and the knocking, it could have been Tabby Nelson. I tried to come up with a reasonable explanation, but I couldn't. This room wasn't just old and forgotten. It had a creepy story buried in it for years. Since that day, neither JC nor I could sleep. The knocking got louder and clearer, with whispers and sometimes soft sobs mixed in. One time, when I was lying down to sleep, JC suddenly shook me awake, her face pale. "Karen, there are footsteps on this ceiling." We both froze, holding our breath. The footsteps dragged slowly, then just stopped right above our heads. The next day, we decided to look into it more seriously. After asking some seniors a few times, we heard rumors about what happened to Tabby. Some people whispered that Tabby had been taken by the dorm manager himself. They said Tabby had found out something she wasn't supposed to know, and to shut her up, the manager tried to get rid of her. After that, no one ever saw Tabby again.
The room she'd stayed in was locked up right after and stayed empty for years. But because so many students were coming in this year, the school had to reopen the old rooms. That night, JC and I decided to do something crazy. Search for evidence inside the room. We grabbed flashlights and checked every corner of the room to see if anything was missing. When JC pulled out the bookcase, she shined the light on it and found an old wooden box. When we opened it, there was a diary inside with the name Tabby Nelson on it. JC and I opened the diary. Tabby's shaky handwriting told a terrifying story. He was always watching me, the dorm manager. He threatened me when I found out he was using girls for some terrible stuff. I didn't dare tell anyone. He said if I said anything, I'd disappear forever. If anyone finds this book, please tell the truth. I don't want to be forgotten. I put the book down, my hands shaking. JC hugged me and started crying. The next morning, we took the diary to the police. A few days later, the news spread like wildfire through the school. The police searched the dorm again and found a secret underground bunker. There, they found the remains of a young girl, later identified as Tabby Nelson. The dorm manager was arrested shortly after. He confessed to the crime. He killed Tabby to silence her after she found out he was abusing and threatening the girls. The whole school was shocked, unable to believe that such a horrible secret had been hidden for so many years. The last night before moving out of the dorm, I dreamed of Tabby. She stood in the dim light, her long hair loose, a gentle smile on her face. This time, she wasn't crying anymore. When I woke up, I felt a weight lift off my heart. Finally, the truth came out, and Tabby Nelson would no longer be a ghost lurking in the walls. I once dated a girl who was crazy and perverted. My name is Rick. I'm 29 years old. 2 years ago, I worked at a movie theater in this charming little town called Galena, Illinois. I had been there for 3 years, and I was getting ready to move to New York in a few months. One night while I was working at the theater, I met Maya, the pretty girl with the long flowing dress and big brown eyes. She looked a bit shy and was awkwardly glancing around the theater hallway. I went up to her to see if she needed help and found out it was Maya's first time at the movies. After I showed Maya to the theater, I stood outside for about 2.5 hours. As soon as the theater doors opened, I looked for Maya because I wanted to get to know her better. Maya gave me a really sweet smile, so it seemed like she wanted to get to know me too. "Do you want to go to the cafe nearby?" "Sure, I'm all for it." As I replied to Maya, I pulled out my phone and quickly texted my coworker to cover my shift. I shared a bunch of funny stories about the cinema with Maya. She laughed a lot, and her smile was so charming, it kind of took my breath away. I noticed that Maya was pretty quiet. She mostly just listened and observed. At 10 p.m., Maya quickly said goodbye and took off. I grabbed her hand and gave Maya a movie to take with her. "I hope you come to the cinema more often. I hope we will meet again." My face turned red after saying that. Maya looked at me, smiled, and then left without saying anything. A week later, Maya still hadn't come to the cinema. I kicked myself for not asking for her contact info. Maya's image kept popping into my head. I think I fell for her the moment we first met. One morning, when I showed up at the cinema to start work, Maya was standing there. Her face looked pale and tired, with red, swollen eyes. It seemed like she'd been crying a lot. Still wearing the same dress from that day, Maya was holding the tape I gave her with both hands. I ran over, and before I could even ask, Maya hugged me and started crying. After Maya calmed down, she told me about what was going on with her family. Maya was the only child in the family. They had a small farm, and Maya took care of everything on her own. Her mom was really controlling, and her dad was seriously ill and couldn't walk. That night, after finishing work outside, I didn't go home. I went straight to the cinema. And my mom found out. She was really mad and locked me in. Maya had a few purple marks on her wrists. I asked her about them, but she quickly pulled her hand away, looking pretty panicked. Maya asked me to hang out with her because she didn't want to be alone at the moment. I took a day off right away, ran to the nearest clothing store, and got Maya a new outfit. That beautiful smile came back, and we strolled around the street together like a happy couple. Out of nowhere, two tall, intimidating guys came walking toward us. "Got a new boyfriend, Gina?" The tattooed guy glanced at Maya and gave her a smile. "Last night was awesome, wasn't it?" The two guys exchanged looks and laughed. Maya was really confused. She grabbed my hand and pulled me away. Once we'd put some distance, Maya looked at me and quickly explained that they had the wrong person. She had never hung out with people like that. I believed Maya. Her confusion was kind of endearing. I took Maya home, and she ended up sharing a lot with me. Maya dreams of becoming a professional dancer and wants to leave the farm and this town to make the dream a reality. I asked her to come with me to New York so we could start a new life and she could chase her dream. Maya smiled, and we had sex on her lead. The next morning, I offered to give Maya a ride home. It took about 30 minutes to drive from my place to Maya's house. It's a small house in the middle of a farm. The inside of the house was pretty messy. Noticing my surprise, Maya said it might be because of the two dogs her family had. Maya suddenly grabbed my hand and said, "I have something to show you. Come to my room." The hallway was pretty dark, and as we walked past the room, a nasty smell hit us. Maya said the mess was also from the two dogs, and that her mom definitely hadn't cleaned up carefully. Maya quickly pulled me toward the room at the end of the hallway. This was Maya's room, and it had a pretty simple and old setup. At that moment, Maya seemed like a different person. There was a weird smile. Her eyes showed she was bracing for trouble, and she kept pacing back and forth. Maya suddenly pounced on me, leaving me confused. Then I heard a small but noticeable scream. "Gina!" Before I could even react, Maya went back to being her usual self. She grabbed my hand and said she wanted to take me to the farm to introduce me to the little friends she was taking care of. I asked about the scream I just heard, but Maya just kept pulling me along and vaguely said there was no scream. Maya's family farm had animals like chickens, crows, and pigs, but there weren't very many of them. "Where are your two dogs? What are their names?" "I don't have dogs." Maya's answer made both of us freeze. Maya avoided my look and walked away. I ran after her, feeling anxious and confused, and bombarded Maya with questions. I ran after her, and suddenly she grabbed a shovel, glared at me, and charged over. I tried to run, but Maya managed to hit me hard on the right hand. The pain was sharp, and I heard a cracking sound. I was pretty sure my shoulder blade was broken. I fell down, then another shovel hit me, while Maya's eerie laughter echoed around. I kicked her leg, and Maya fell down. Seizing the chance, I used my legs to pin her down. I only had my left hand free, so I fumbled with my phone in my pocket, pressing the call button to dial the police. Maya got up, grabbed my phone, and threw it away. My headache was making me dizzy, so at that point, all I could do was run. The animals on the farm got scared and started running in all directions. At one point, I almost ran right into a bull. I fell down, and at that moment, Maya's image looked like a tiger contentedly enjoying a meal after a long hunt. She was about to get revenge on me with a fatal blow, but thankfully, The police arrived just in time. Maya was restrained by 2 male police officers while I was treated by 2 paramedics. I told the police about the smell and the screams. After searching the house, they found a man in a wheelchair, gasping for breath. He was Maya's dad, and she had been starving him for days. The smell was because he couldn't use the bathroom on his own. The screams were coming from a woman who was in pretty bad shape. It was Maya's mom, who had been locked in the basement since the night of the argument. Maya's real name was Gina. She was 35 and had a complicated history with the town's troublemakers. The flood of information left me feeling completely overwhelmed and in shock. Maya was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Part of the reason was her strict and controlling mom. Her harsh control made Gina constantly crave a way to push back. Gina was taken to a mental health facility for treatment. Her parents were also lucky to be rescued and were moved to a nursing home. I quit my job and left Galena as soon as I got out of the hospital. I learned a big lesson about love and trust. It's something you really need to understand before giving it to someone.
I never thought my life would become a real nightmare. My name is Emma Carter, 25 years old, and I work as a server at a high-end restaurant on the outskirts of Chicago. I've always been cautious, especially with men who may have bad intentions. In the past, I've been harassed a few times, but never to the point where I feared for my life. I have big ambitions in the hospitality industry, and I've built a professional LinkedIn profile to seek better opportunities. Everything started very normally. One day, I received a message on LinkedIn from Richard Holloway, the shift manager at the restaurant where I worked. He was 45 years old, married with 2 children, always polite and courteous. The first message was simply career advice, tips on how to develop professionally in the industry. I didn't think much of it and replied politely. But then, the messages started becoming more personal. "You're really a special girl. I think we could be closer. Would you like a little help in your career?" When I read those words for the first time, I felt uncomfortable. The friendliness turned into something over the top. I replied briefly, trying to keep a clear distance. But Richard didn't stop. The messages from him came more frequently, often late at night. "I have a private apartment to relax after work. Would you like to come? My wife doesn't understand me the way you do." A feeling of disgust surged within me. I didn't reply. The encounters at the restaurant became tense every time Richard stared at me with eyes full of hidden meaning. I tried to avoid him, but I couldn't leave this job. Then one day, when I opened the locker in the employee changing room, I froze. A bouquet of bright red roses was neatly placed inside, with no name. Only a small card with scribbled handwriting. "For you." Unable to bear it anymore, I decided to block Richard on LinkedIn. But the next morning, I received a friend request from a new account. When I opened it, a message chilled me to the bone. "Do you think you can escape from me so easily? I know you still read my messages. I'm always watching you." Fear began to consume my mind. The feeling of being watched grew stronger and stronger. When leaving the restaurant after my shift, I always felt like someone was standing a few steps behind me. One night, I heard footsteps behind me. I walked faster, and the footsteps quickened as well. I ran. When I reached my apartment, I quickly locked the door, my heart pounding, my mind spinning with panic. I couldn't sleep for several nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I had the feeling that someone was standing right next to my bed. I would wake up suddenly in the middle of the night, my heart racing, cold sweat dripping down my face, only to realize that the room was completely empty. But I couldn't convince myself that I was safe. The next morning, I arrived at the restaurant in a state of extreme stress. But what awaited me was even worse. On my desk, right in front of me, was a photo of me on my way home with the words, "I was here." I panicked. I called the police, but they couldn't do anything without concrete evidence. I only received advice to be more careful. Their helplessness only made me more desperate. One time, I confided in Lucas, a close co-worker, about being followed. Lucas knew a bit about IT, so I asked him to investigate the LinkedIn account that had been bothering me. Tracing the IP address, Lucas discovered it didn't come from Richard. A cold shiver ran down my spine. If it wasn't Richard, then who was it? I was hoping for some comfort, but Lucas just chuckled and said, "Well, if I were you, I'd make him disappear." I laughed, thinking it was just a joke. That night, I received another video from the fake LinkedIn account. I hesitated for a few seconds, a sense of unease creeping over me. I knew I shouldn't open it, but curiosity mixed with fear made me unable to resist. I opened it, and my heart seemed to stop. In the video, Richard was tied to a wooden chair, his face bruised. A voice echoed from the darkness. "He was following you, but now he's mine." I jumped, dropping the phone onto the bed, struggling to breathe, but the air around me felt suffocating. A chilling sensation crawled up my spine, as though someone was standing right behind me, whispering in my ear. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone to call the police, but every search effort came up empty. The next day, the restaurant received news. Richard had mysteriously disappeared. Then, I received another message. "He made you uncomfortable, didn't he? I've helped you." I mustered the courage to reply, "Who are you? What do you want?" There was no specific answer, just another video. In the video, I saw myself leaving the restroom at the restaurant. A hidden camera recorded a man hiding behind a locker right after me. The final message almost made me drop the phone. "He's not the only one following you." The police traced the IP address and found an abandoned house. When they broke in, a foul odor hit them as soon as they entered. Deeper inside, they found a dark room with a flickering overhead light, casting a cold glow on a body tied to a chair in the middle of the room. Inside the secret room, the police found dozens of photos of me taped to the walls, taken from different angles. My daily schedule was carefully recorded, hour by hour. A computer contained hundreds of fake LinkedIn accounts. The police recovered data and found fake conversations, including threatening messages to me. Some older photos of other women were also found. The police began to question, was I the only victim he had been obsessed with? Fingerprints found at the scene were matched, and the result left me speechless. All of them belonged to Lucas. When confessing his motive, Lucas said that he had been in love with me, but I only saw him as a friend. When he saw Richard flirting with me, he planned everything, created fake accounts, sent threatening messages, making me believe that Richard was the only dangerous one. But in reality, he was the true monster. As he was led away in handcuffs, Lucas looked at me with a crazed smile. "I've gotten rid of him, Emma. Now no one will hurt you." My whole body trembled uncontrollably. I knew I could never escape the darkness he had spread.